Alright, so recently I had some suggestions from a member on the channel. Today we're going to get in on the first one. If Rin Tohsaka and Kiritsugu were to go head up in the battle, no servants, just mage combat, who would be the one to come out on top? So in order to make this as smooth as possible, we are going to be using EOS Rin, end of series Rin. It only makes sense. Kiritsugu is already at the end of his road. Let's rewind things back a bit. We know that from his fight with Kiritsugu has no actual training as a close range fighter, but he does have his close range expertise as a mercenary to make up the difference. That coupled with the fact of him using his tactical knife. We also know that Rin was trained in martial arts by Kirei, an actual Baji Chuan expert, which even led her to beating out people like Medea, who's a servant. She's even more threatening. Thinking about this, the fight starts to get a lot closer when they're in range than it might seem. He would nearly be fighting the same person with more assets. He's going to have a tough time dealing with her if she gets up close. By the way, we're not giving Kiritsugu Avalon because that was something that he specifically took out for his fight against Kirei, and it was in his possession to match the fact that Kirei had gotten the command spells from his father. So it would make no sense for him to have that buff when Rin can't. It would almost be like me giving Rin the Collider Stick. What this means is that just like his fight with Kana, Kiritsugu is going to have to get real creative in the way that he uses his time altar and use it very sparingly. Next we have the long range. Much like how Kirei had his black keys and his black key manipulations, Rin has her Gander bullets as well as her gem magecraft. The unfortunate part about this is that at this range, this is Kiritsugu's strong suit, and given his character, he will have done research on Rin's fighting style to maximize on her flaws and her weaknesses. While Rin does have many active spells that can block off his weaponry, she's still very susceptible to getting hit by his bullets, even more so considering that they normally aren't rooted in magecraft. Again, modern technology is something that we know Rin has trouble dealing with, and that's just based on her character in general. And unlike Kirei, Rin doesn't have a full Kevlar church suit like the one that he was using to actively block the bullets during their battle. One good barrage from Kiritsugu and she's done. She's out of here. So that's about that goes in Kiritsugu's favor, but I wouldn't get too excited about this if I was him. In the Fate route, back when Rin was captured by Heracles, mind you that Heracles is one of the best servants in Fate, period. And in that moment, she used some of her strongest gems in order to escape him. She outright destroyed Heracles, a top servant, and went as far as taking one of his lives. She even was smart enough to reinforce her stomach with her gem magecraft before he had grabbed her. That just goes to show that she too knows how to plan ahead. And that was a servant. She will outright murder Kiritsugu if she decides to do this to him. That's about in her favor. Next you have his Mystic Code, his Thompson Contender, and his Origin Bullet. Given the situation with Kana, one hit from this bullet would box Rin up. Simple and cut and dry. Luckily, in her case, it's highly unlikely that she would get hit by this bullet, at least in a similar way. You have to remember, his Mystic Code worked because Kana's Hydrodrome was intertwined with him as an individual. By Hydrodrome consuming one of Kiritsugu's bullets, he had sealed his own fate. The thing about that when it comes to Rin is that though the gems are hers, she's not always actively putting magical energy through them, and she has tons of them to go through, all different types of variety. Many of her gems would already have magical energy inside them before the battle. Another thing about Kiritsugu is that there's no way that he's going to take the shot unless he can guarantee the outcome. So unless Rin slips up severely, getting hit via her own magecraft shouldn't be one of her main concerns. It's his magecraft that she needs to be worried about, and that leads us into his time altar. Now don't get me wrong, Rin is already faster than Kiritsugu, and given her fight with Luvia, she's even faster than Kirei, based on the way that she uses her reinforcement. The issue comes in when she approaches up close, possibly to use her Baji Chuan or do a fatal attack, is if he just so happens to manipulate time in his favor, and he has been shown to do this in his fight against Kirei, she will die. There's no dancing around it. So that's another bout in his favor. 2-1. Likewise, if he fails, the burden on his body will be too intense. He doesn't have Avalon to bail him out. He would likely either take himself out or she'll be the one to finish him off while he's hanging on by the thread. That's about in her favor. 2-2. Now we're getting somewhere. So what will be the determining factor to lean the battle on either side? Beyond Rin having a variety of gems, she also has elemental variance in her stock. If you remember, she froze Heracles not only in the Fate route, but in the UB-Dub route as well. Heracles is an extremely fast servant. You see where I'm going with this? If she can freeze Heracles while he's moving, then she could absolutely get a hold of Kiritsugu. She traps him in one location and then follows up with one of her Gander bullets or one of her strongest attacks. He's done. Then in a similar vein, going back to Kiritsugu's fight with Kanan, Time Alter is a very convenient magecraft. If he decides to go in on Time Alter right here, possibly he does a manipulation to weave out of the way of the freezing, the same way he weaved out of the way of Hydrardrum. At the very least, he still survives. We'll give that one a stalemate. He's got frags, flame grenades, and C4s, all of them being able to secure a win under the right circumstance. In a case where Rin tries to get up close, maybe she underestimates his Time Alter and he plants one of these on her body and then uses his manipulation to get back to safety, he comes out on top. 3-2 in his favor. He's got sniper rifles and rocket launchers. If you remember when Rin was fighting against Ilya, using her familiars alone was enough to make Rin run and take cover. If she does the same thing against Kiritsugu in the wrong way and she tries to peek her head out, he pulls out the thermal scope, domes her up. 4-2 in his favor. But let's not forget, Rin also has her Azov dagger. So in another position where Rin is up close and she baits Kiritsugu into thinking he has the advantage by leaving herself open, she could puncture him and then finish him off in a one-shot the same way that Shiro did to Kirei. 3-4, Kiritsugu's still in the lead. You have Rin's pseudo gemstone magecraft from Case Files, where she combines projection with her gems and then machine guns them at the opponent while fusing them with the elements. Again, this is something that Kiritsugu cannot dodge, and if he does decide to dodge it, the cost will be heavy and she'll be there for the follow-up. Now it's 4-4. Even though by this point Rin does have her own version of Ro Ias, it would be a ridiculous idea to use against Kiritsugu thanks to his origin bullet. Pulling this out will be tantamount to bodying herself, so that's out of the picture. But you do have the technique that she used in Prisma Ilya, where she was able to replicate Thor's hammer by only using her magecraft and her Azov dagger in unison, and she doesn't need Luvia to do this. The area of effect is too wide for Kiritsugu to dodge, and it would fry his entire body upon contact. 5-4 in her favor. She's the one that takes it.